Turning to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, I have a statement from the Secretary General, which we'll share with you in writing momentarily. All the unlawful attacks in the Middle East and beyond are causing tremendous suffering and harm to civilians throughout the region. These attacks pose a grave risk to the global economy, particularly the most vulnerable people. The situation could spiral beyond anyone's control, the Secretary General says. He adds that it is time to stop the fighting and get to serious diplomatic negotiations, as the stakes could not be higher. Speaking of high stakes, in Lebanon, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that widespread displacement orders are placing already affected civilians under increasing strain. Ongoing airstrikes across the country are killing and injuring dozens of people. Across the country, more than 100,000 people are now sheltering in collective centers. Many more people are on the move. Health services in affected areas remains disrupted. We've received reports that hospitals in South Beirut were forced to suspend operation and evacuate patients on March 5th and remain non-operational today. Peacekeepers have also observed Israeli Defense Forces ground incursions across the Blue Line into Lebanese territory. That's in addition to those recorded earlier in the week. And I can tell you that our UNIFIL peacekeepers remain in place and in position in the application of their mandate. And in Syria, over 30,000 people have crossed from Lebanon into that country over the past week. That's what our Syrian authorities are telling us. UN teams are present at border crossings, monitoring movements and coordinating with the Syrian government and other partners to provide assistance when appropriate. We remind all parties that civilians and civilian infrastructure must be protected at all times in accordance with international humanitarian law. We urge all involved to avail to the diplomatic channels and avoid further escalation and return to the implementation of Security Council Resolution 1701. Turning to Iran, our colleagues at UNICEF tell us they're deeply concerned about the deadly impact of the ongoing military escalation in that country, the impact it is having on children. Approximately 180 children have reportedly been killed and many more injured. Among the casualties are 168 girls killed when a strike hit the Shajare Taibeh elementary school in Minab in southern Iran. While classes, the strike took place while classes were still in session on February 28th. UNICEF reported yesterday that at least 20 schools have been damaged. It says that schools are protected under international humanitarian law and must be places of safety. Health facilities have also been impacted. The World Health Organization has verified 13 attacks impacting healthcare sites as of yesterday. UNHCR says that initial estimates from authorities of 100,000 people leaving Tehran in the first 2 days of the crisis have now been surpassed. It adds, UNHCR adds that the country is home to 1.65 million people who are forced to flee mostly from Afghanistan, and an overwhelming number are seeking help and support.
How could it get any more out of control than it is right now?
I mean, it doesn't take much imagination to see how this situation could get even worse, whether it's threatening the unity of certain member states, the continuing suffering of civilians, and also the deteriorating situation around the Strait of Hormuz. The impact that will have on globally. We're already seeing a spike in oil prices, and the impact that will have given our continued addiction to fossil fuels. I mean, I talked about the FAO food price, the report FAO put out talking about how so many countries need assistance with food due to all sorts of reasons. One can only imagine the spike in energy prices will have on transport, food production, on fertilizers. I mean, sadly, the situation could get much worse.
The U.S. is not claiming responsibility yet. Israel isn't. Does the UN have the capability to get there, to get eyes on the ground, or not?
At this point, we do not. But that does not mean that it does not mean there shouldn't be any sort of investigation right now. We've seen some also very interesting media coverage in the last 24 hours on that.
Right now, we're seeing these crises escalate rapidly with consequences that are out of control for those instigating the conflict. And we're seeing increasing linkages between these different humanitarian crises, none of them good. We're seeing staggering amounts of money, reportedly $1 billion a day, funding this war, spent on destruction, while politicians continue to boast about cutting aid budgets for those in greatest need. And we're seeing an increasingly deadly alliance of technology and killing with impunity. We're seeing a sustained attack against the systems and laws meant to restrain us from our worst instincts and from reckless warfare. So too many warning lights are flashing on the dashboard right now. And as the Secretary General has said, and as you'll have heard from Steph, what we need is de-escalation, an immediate cessation of hostilities, genuine dialogue and negotiations, in line with the Charter of the United Nations. We need calmer heads to prevail. Actions, of course, have consequences. And once again, civilians are facing those consequences across the Middle East. Beyond the impact on those country crises, I also fear three knock-on effects of this war. Firstly, war doesn't stay neatly within borders or on desktop military plans. It tears through markets, supply chains, food prices. And when that happens, it's the most vulnerable people who are hit first and hardest. And so when maritime corridors such as the Straits of Hormuz are disrupted, food prices will rise, health systems will be squeezed, and basic commodities, including our humanitarian supplies, will become much harder to access. So we're pre-positioning supplies, we're identifying alternative supply routes, and we're preparing rapid funding options, including from the Central Emergency Response Fund. A second knock-on effect, there will be even less attention for crises from DRC to Sudan, to South Sudan, where I was last month, to Ukraine and beyond. We sometimes hear that these conflicts have been ended. Let me repeat that they have not. A third knock-on impact. The last week is part of a pattern of attrition against international law and humanitarian principles. As conflicts spread, the international system pulls further apart and more resources flow towards weapons rather than the funding, the political will, the diplomatic energy needed for saving lives.
You like this video? Then like, share and subscribe to Mirror Now.